Hey guys, this is James with thegraymattersblog.com coming to you on another one of my walks through the beautiful South Texas woods. On this walk today, we're going to talk a little bit about writing advice. I've been getting a lot more questions, a lot more stuff people are curious about. Today, we're going to talk about how you deal with controversial issues. That's probably like the number one topic of discussion in every writing group I'm part of. It's at least one post a day, and we're going to talk a little bit about at least my approach to it. Not saying I'm right, but it's how I feel about it. We're also going to talk a little bit about when do you get to call yourself a writer, when do you get to call yourself an author, and what those labels even mean. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about book length. You know, what's a novel, what's a short story, what's a microfiction. We're going to talk a little bit about those and kind of what qualifies. So first off, we're going to start about the controversial topics. And I mean, this is talking about religion, sexuality, race, any of that stuff, any of this really controversial charged stuff, and writing characters that are from different races, writing characters that aren't from different races, writing characters from other countries, any of this stuff that's always so controversial. And I feel like in order to really talk about this, first I've got to tell you a story. This is a Turkish fable. Once upon a time, there was a caravan going through the mountains, and the only way through the mountains was through this tunnel. And as they go through the tunnel, it gets completely dark, and they have to make their way purely by feel. And under their feet, they feel these stones. And as they feel these stones that they're treading underfoot, they hear this ghostly voice boom all throughout the tunnel, saying, "If you take the stones, you will be sorry. If you don't take the stones, you will be sorry." And so, of course, they're terrified, and some people take the stones, and some people don't take the stones. And as they finally get to the end of the cave collapses behind them. The tunnel collapses behind them. And they all take a moment to stop and look at the stones, and the stones are all precious jewels. And the people who didn't take the stones were sorry because they didn't take the stones and had no jewels, and the people who did take them were sorry because they hadn't taken more. And I tell you that story because my opinion when it comes to dealing with controversial issues is take the stones. You're going to make people mad no matter how you deal with it. If you deal with controversial topics, people are going to be mad at you. If you don't deal with controversial topics, people are going to be mad at you. If you have characters of different races, then they'll say that that it's not your story to tell. If you don't have characters of different races, then they'll say you're whitewashing. Now, let's talk about how to do this right, but ultimately, write your story, write what you feel is correct, and go with it, because they're going to be mad at you. No matter what you do, you might as well take the stones. First off, write well. Please write well, especially if you're going to tackle controversial issues, write well. Make sure your characters are three-dimensional, not stereotypes. Stereotype characters suck no matter what race, gender, religion, or anything like that they are. Make sure they are full, fleshed out characters. If you do that, you're halfway there. One of the other things is, okay, everyone always says write what you know. That doesn't mean write what you know personally, but write things you're knowledgeable about. If I was going to try to write a story about Russian immigrants, that would be challenging for me because I don't know any Russian immigrants. I've never met a Russian immigrant. So it would be really hard for me to write that story because I don't have a knowledge base. It doesn't mean I couldn't acquire that knowledge base, but I don't currently have that knowledge base. So that would be really challenging for me. So start by writing things you know. Then there's doing your research. And part of doing your research is going to be getting subject matter experts. That is super huge. People like to throw around the word sensitivity reader. And I mean, whatever, but I don't know about that, but I like subject matter experts. These are people who, whatever you're writing about, they know. If you're writing about a blind character, get a blind person who can teach you about that. If you are looking for someone if you're writing about a character who only has one leg or is from a certain country, then get someone who is an expert on that. So that preferably means someone who is whatever you're writing. I actually had a really awesome experience where there was a guy, I believe he was from India, in one of the writing groups. He said he wanted to write a story about a girl from the American South who grew up in a strict Southern Baptist family. Now, he was asking for subject matter experts, so I volunteered because I'm from the South, my family was Baptist. So I was able to, I got with him and he had a lot of questions. For one, it was a really cool experience talking to someone who had questions about my culture like I normally have about theirs, you know, because normally I'm a very curious person. I like talking to people from different places and different walks of life, and I'm usually asking these questions. So hearing him ask questions like, what kind of food is served at family dinners and what kind of behaviors are taboo, and just him asking these questions of me was a really cool experience to get it from the other side. And I was able to give him some really good insights. Like, one of the things that he didn't understand and thought was really strange was the idea that a lot of Southerners, especially Christians, don't drink at all. And that just seemed, the fact of being a complete teetotaler and that not being seen as extreme struck me, it struck him as really weird. And so being able to say, look, that's really common, that's something else that helped to add some authenticity to his story. So get subject matter experts. That is huge. And if you do all of that, if you make sure you're being authentic, if you make sure that you're being honest, writing good characters, writing them as real people, whatever they are, if they're from a different religion or a different race or or if they have a disability that you don't have, just be real, just be authentic, just be sincere, and you're halfway there, and halfway there is as far as you're getting, because you're going to make somebody mad. That's my opinion. Probably someone would tell me I'm wrong, but that's my take on it. The other thing I want to talk about is, or one of the other things I want to talk about, is when do you get to call yourself a writer? When do you get to call yourself an author? First of all, I think most of us can agree, if you write, you're a writer. Now, that means if you write consistently. If you wrote one thing a long time ago, it's a little hard to argue that you're still a writer. But if you write and you keep writing, you're a writer. No one gets to take that away from you. Doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be regular, but if you write, you're a writer. Author is where it gets a little tricky. The definition I've always heard is, if you are published, you're an author. The problem with that is, published in what? I mean, does it mean you have to have a published novel? What if it's a collection of short stories? What if you're published in a magazine? What if you publish to a blog? What if you're self-published onto Amazon? So I don't really think that covers it. To me, it's more like levels. Kind of like levels in Dungeons & Dragons, or like a role-playing game, video game kind of thing. That every time you achieve a new goal, you go up a level. When you first finish your first story or novel or whatever, you go up a level. When you first show that story to someone else and get their feedback and their critique, you go up a level. When you get published in any way, you go up a level. When you make any money at all, you go up a level. And you just keep going and going. You know, when you start making a living with your writing, you go up a level. So I don't think it's so much that you can say that an author is published. You know, you can more say like, I'm a level 12 author with subclasses in poet and blogger. So it's really kind of complicated because there's not like these clear delineations. But I feel like anybody can claim writer, and I feel like author is really just a fancy sounding way to say writer. But anyway, that's my opinion on that. Then there's book length. Book length is another one of those things. You may have noticed the theme of this video is that there are no hard and fast answers. And one of the things on book length is it kind of just depends on who you ask. But the very most basic, short, easy rule of thumb thing is if it's about 500 to 1,000 words, then it's kind of a microfiction, flash fiction, that kind of thing. It's these little micro stories. Some people also measure that by if it's like a scene versus like a length, but about 500 to 2,000 words. Short stories are usually up to and around 10,000 words. The L. Ron Hubbard competition, Writers of the Future, is like one of those gold standards, and they say anything under 17,000 is accepted, so anything in there is really a short story. A novel is around 100,000 words-ish. They also have novellas and novelettes, but I mean, really and honestly, those are kind of almost non-categories. But anything in the 100,000-ish, if you're looking to get traditionally published, then really you're looking at trying to keep it under 90,000. Genre matters, sci-fi gets to be longer. I'm actually running out of time on my video, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you'd like to hear me talk about next. I'll catch you guys on my next walk.